On the day of the final hearing, my husband Mark filed for divorce, accusing me of being a failed wife and mother. He even demanded all our property and full custody of our daughter. However, in the courtroom, I heard a shocking sentence. It was the voice of my 7-year-old daughter, Lily, who asked the judge, "Your Honor, can I show you something my mommy doesn't know?" The judge nodded. My daughter came forward, held up her tablet, and pressed the play button. When the video began, a frozen silence fell over the entire room. That morning began like any other in their house. Sarah, dressed in simple clothes, had been busy in the kitchen since dawn. The faint aroma of a hot breakfast mixed with the smell of detergent from the washing machine spinning in the corner of the laundry room. Sarah moved quickly but quietly, making almost no noise. She had learned to move like a shadow in her own home over the years, an effort not to disturb the peace of her husband, Mark. At 6:00 a.m., Mark came down from the second floor. He looked impeccable in his freshly ironed shirt. Sarah immediately placed a cup of hot black coffee and a steaming breakfast plate on the table. Mark sat down and took the cup without even looking at her. "The coffee is a little bitter today," Mark said dryly, his eyes fixed on his phone screen. "I'm sorry, honey. I thought I measured it right this time," Sarah replied in a low voice. Mark didn't answer, simply pushing his breakfast around his plate and eating a few spoonfuls in silence. Sarah stood near the table, awkwardly waiting for him to say something else. He didn't. The silence between them was so thick and cold, it seemed to freeze the hot steam rising from the coffee on the table. Sarah had forgotten the last time they shared a breakfast with laughter. It was probably 2 or 3 years ago when Mark started working late and his business trips became longer. "Is Lily up?" Mark asked without looking up. "Yes, honey. She's taking a shower. She'll be down for breakfast soon," Sarah said. Sure enough, a short while later, the sound of small footsteps came down the stairs. Lily, their 7-year-old daughter, ran towards them in her neat school uniform. Her smile was bright, a stark contrast to the morning's atmosphere. "Good morning, Mommy and Daddy." Lily kissed Sarah on the cheek and went to Mark. He finally put down his phone and forced a faint smile at his daughter. "Good morning, Princess. Finish your food. Daddy will take you to school." "Wow, I'm going with Daddy," Lily exclaimed with joy. Sarah exhaled a sigh of relief. At least in front of Lily, Mark made an effort to act warm. This brief breakfast hour was the only family time they had. As soon as Lily finished eating, Mark immediately stood up, grabbed his briefcase, kissed Lily on the forehead, and headed for the front door. As always, he walked past Sarah as if she weren't there. No goodbye, no kiss, not even a glance. Only the roar of his car driving away left Sarah alone in the emptiness of their large house. Sarah spent the rest of the morning with her routine, clearing the table, washing dishes, doing laundry, and straightening up the rooms. She did everything with efficiency. She always strove to have the perfect house. She knew that if the house was clean enough, if the food was delicious enough, if she was quiet enough, maybe the old Mark would come back. But the old Mark seemed to have been gone for a long time. At noon, Sarah went to pick up Lily from school. This was her favorite time of the day. She loved listening to Lily chatter about her friends, her art class, or her lunchbox. "Mommy, today I got 5 stars from the teacher. I answered the question right," Lily chirped happily, holding her mother's hand. "Wow, my daughter is so smart," Sarah praised sincerely, pinching her little nose. When they got home, as Sarah was helping Lily take off her shoes, she heard the sound of a delivery truck stopping in front of the house. A uniformed delivery man called out her name. "Sarah, a package for you." Sarah frowned. She hadn't ordered anything. She walked to the front door and received a large, thick manila envelope. There was no sender's name, only the logo of a law firm in the top right corner. Sarah's heart began to pound uncomfortably. "Who is it, Mommy?" asked Lily, who had followed her. "I don't know, Princess. It's probably just junk mail. Go change and then we'll have lunch," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice calm. After Lily ran to her room, Sarah sat on the living room sofa. Her hands trembled slightly as she tore open the envelope. Inside was a thick stack of papers. The first sentence on the top page made Sarah gasp. "Divorce petition." Sarah's world seemed to stop. Her ears were ringing. She reread the words, hoping her eyes had deceived her. Plaintiff, Mark, defendant. Sarah, grounds for petition. The wife has utterly failed in her marital duties. Sarah felt sick. Failed. She had dedicated her entire life to this house. She had given up her career at Mark's request. She had taken care of Lily. She made sure Mark's shirt was impeccable every morning. What did he mean by failed? She continued reading the following pages. Her eyes blurred at the demands Mark was making. The demands were cruel. Mark was not only asking for a divorce, but was also requesting full custody of Lily, claiming Sarah was emotionally unstable and incapable of raising the child properly. And most devastating of all, he demanded all of the marital assets, including the house they lived in, on the grounds that Sarah had not contributed financially and that all assets were solely the result of Mark's efforts. Sarah collapsed limply onto the cold hardwood floor. The papers scattered around her, so that's why Mark had been so cold for months. This had been a plan secretly hatched behind her back. The front door opened. Mark was home from work unusually early. He stood in the doorway looking at Sarah collapsed on the floor and then at the scattered papers. His expression was cold without a hint of guilt. "Honey, what does this mean?" Sarah's voice trembled and tears began to well up. Mark took off his shoes in silence. He approached, loosening his tie. He didn't deny it or explain. He simply said coldly, "It's exactly what you read. I don't want to live with you anymore, Sarah. You've failed. You failed as a wife and as a mother. Failed," Sarah moaned in disbelief. "I've taken care of this house and raised Lily." "Taken care of the house?" Mark scoffed dismissively. "All you've done is spend my money. Lily needs a better mother, a competent one, not someone who only knows how to cry and complain like you. But all the property, this house, and Lily, honey, you can't take them from me." Sarah began to scream hysterically. Mark bent down and looked at her with a sharp, hate-filled gaze that Sarah had never seen before. "I can and I will. My lawyer has all the evidence. You won't get anything, Sarah. You will leave this house without a single penny." Mark stood up and straightened his suit. He glanced towards the stairs, making sure Lily couldn't hear. "And get ready," Mark smirked with a chilling smile that froze Sarah's blood. "My lawyer says even your own daughter will testify in court about how incompetent you are as a mother." Sarah froze in terror, her heart shattering into pieces. Mark didn't just want to divorce her. He wanted to destroy her completely. Sarah didn't sleep that night. After the cruel confrontation, Mark had retreated to the guest room and locked the door as if Sarah were a threat. Sarah spent the night in her daughter's room, sitting in the chair by the bed, watching Lily's peaceful face as she slept. Her tears wouldn't stop falling. How could Mark say that Lily would testify against her? Lily was everything to her. What could they have told her little daughter? That thought tormented her more than any other accusation. The next morning, Mark acted as if nothing had happened. He woke Lily, got her uniform ready, and took her to school. He didn't say a word to Sarah. When Lily asked why her mother's eyes were swollen, Mark replied casually, "Mommy's not feeling very well, Princess." After they left, the real terror set in for Sarah. She had to fight. She couldn't give up on Lily so easily. She grabbed her phone and searched for the names of reputable divorce lawyers in the city. But the harsh reality soon hit her. Lawyers needed money, a retainer, a consultation fee. Sarah realized she had no money. For all these years, Mark had only given her a monthly allowance, budgeted just enough for groceries and Lily's school expenses. There was no room to save anything. Her only hope was their joint account, the one she thought was their family's emergency fund. With trembling hands, Sarah opened the banking app on her phone. She entered the password, her heart pounding. When the balance appeared on the screen, Sarah felt her legs give way. Zero. The account was at zero. It couldn't be. There should have been hundreds of thousands of dollars in there. Sarah refreshed repeatedly, hoping for a system error, but the number zero stared back at her. She opened the transaction history, and her eyes widened in horror. For the past 6 months, Mark had been systematically withdrawing large amounts of money, transferring them to another account Sarah didn't know about. The last withdrawal had been made just 3 days ago, emptying the rest of the account. Mark had planned this. He wasn't just leaving. He had deliberately crippled her financially so she couldn't fight back. Sarah cried in despair. How was she going to hire a lawyer without a single dollar? She remembered her wedding jewelry. She ran to her room and opened her jewelry box. It was empty with only a few pieces of costume jewelry left. Mark had even taken her jewelry. In her desperation, Sarah remembered an old friend who worked at a legal aid agency. She called her and told her the situation between sobs. Her friend felt pity, but couldn't do much except give her a name. "His name is Mr. Davis." Her friend said he has a small office on the second floor of an old strip mall. "He's not an expensive lawyer, but he's honest and dedicated. Go see him. Explain your situation. Maybe he can help you." Sarah had no other choice. With the little cash she had left in her wallet, she called a cab and went to the address her friend gave her. Mr. Davis's office was exactly as her friend had described it. Small, modest, and located on the second floor of an old strip mall with peeling paint. Mr. Davis was a middle-aged man with thick glasses and a calm demeanor. He listened patiently to Sarah's story without interrupting, just nodding occasionally and taking notes. When Sarah finished, Davis let out a long sigh. "Sarah, this is going to be an uphill battle," he said quietly. "Your husband has prepared all of this very thoroughly. He doesn't just want a divorce. He wants to destroy you. I know, but I don't care about the property. I just want Lily. Please help me. I don't have money now, but I will pay you. I'll pay you in installments. I'll do whatever it takes," Sarah pleaded desperately. Mr. Davis looked at her for a moment. "Let's leave the money issue for later, Sarah. The important thing now is that we have to move quickly. This petition has already been filed. We need to prepare a response immediately." Mr. Davis asked Sarah to wait. He left the room and returned a few minutes later with a folder full of photocopies. They were the court documents filed by Mark's side. "Your husband's lawyer is Mr. Wallace. He's known for being sharp and not afraid to use dirty tactics," Mr. Davis said firmly. "Let's see what evidence they've presented." Sarah nodded, her heart pounding. Mr. Davis opened the folder. The first page was photographs. Sarah was shocked to see pictures of the inside of her house, photos of dirty dishes piled up in the kitchen, photos of the living room cluttered with toys, photos of dirty clothes overflowing from the laundry basket. "But this is unfair," Sarah protested. "These are pictures he took when I was sick. I had a high fever for 3 days, and Mark wouldn't help at all. He took them on purpose." "Sarah, I'm afraid this is manipulated to make you look like a lazy person who doesn't maintain the house," Mr. Davis said with a bitter expression. They moved on to the next pages. They were credit card statements. Sarah saw a list of charges for luxury handbags, jewelry, and expensive restaurant dinners that she had never bought. "This isn't me. I didn't buy these things. Was it a secondary card in your name?" Mr. Davis asked. "Yes, a secondary one. Mark managed it. He told me to use it if I needed to, but he often took it, saying his main card had maxed out. Oh my God, he set me up." Sarah felt the world spin. She realized that every little kindness from Mark was actually part of his evil plan. And then Mr. Davis paused on a thick document towards the end. "And this is the most damaging." "Sarah, what is it?" It was the testimony of an expert witness, a child psychologist. Mr. Davis handed the report to Sarah. She read it. The report was written in cold clinical terms. It stated that the psychologist had conducted covert observations of Sarah's interactions with Lily. The conclusion was that Sarah was emotionally unstable, neglected her daughter's needs, and was a detrimental mother to Lily's psychological development. The report recommended full custody for Mark for the child's mental health. "This makes no sense. When was this observation done? I never met a psychologist." Sarah's voice trembled violently. "According to this report, the observation was conducted in public places at the park, at the mall, and when you picked up your daughter from school," Mr. Davis explained, looking at her intently. "That's insane. Lily always seemed happy with me. This is slander. Who is this psychologist?" Mr. Davis flipped to the cover of the report. "Her name is Dr. Evelyn Reed," he said. "Here are all her credentials. She seems very professional and convincing." Mr. Davis looked at Sarah seriously. "Sarah, do you know this woman? Evelyn Reed." Sarah shook her head in bewilderment, her tears falling again. "No, I don't know her. I've never seen her in my life. The reality of living under the same roof with the man who was planning to destroy you was a silent hell." Mark hadn't left the house. He had simply moved into the guest room. The once warm home now felt like a frozen battlefield with emotional landmines hidden in every corner. Sarah had to live with her enemy, see him every morning, and pretend everything was normal in front of Lily. Mark executed his strategy perfectly in front of Lily. He was the best father in the world. He started coming home from work earlier than usual, something he hadn't done in months. He brought expensive gifts. One night, he returned with a large box featuring a cartoon princess. "This is your new tablet, Lily," Mark exclaimed, hugging Lily. "This one is much better than the old one. It has a better camera, and Daddy installed lots of games for you." Lily's eyes lit up. "Wow, thank you, Daddy." Sarah, who was folding laundry in the living room, could only swallow. Her heart ached. She knew what Mark was doing. He was buying their daughter's loyalty. Sarah couldn't compete. She didn't have a dollar to buy Lily anything. "See, Princess," Mark said, glancing at Sarah with a sneer as he turned on the new tablet. "When you live with Daddy later, you'll get a new toy every week." Unlike someone who only knows how to fold clothes, Sarah stopped her hand's movement. There was a lump in her chest. She wanted to scream, to curse at Mark, but she couldn't in front of Lily. If she got angry, it would only prove Mark's accusation that she was emotionally unstable. So Sarah just kept folding clothes silently, her head down, letting Mark's venom fill the room. The terror continued daily. Mark systematically undermined Sarah's authority as a mother. If Sarah prepared dinner, Mark would come into the kitchen, taste the food, and say in front of Lily, "Honey, the soup is a little salty." Again. "It's okay. We'll order takeout tomorrow." If Sarah was about to help Lily with her homework, Mark would interrupt. "Let me do it. The way Mommy teaches you is too complicated. You'll get confused." Sarah felt smaller and smaller, more and more invisible in her own home. She began to doubt herself. Did she really cook badly? Was she really not capable of teaching her daughter? Mark played his part too well, making Sarah look like an inept woman. Lily, caught in the middle, began to show signs of confusion. It was clear she loved her mother, but she also enjoyed all the attention and gifts from her father. Sometimes Lily would cling to Sarah as if seeking protection, but other times she seemed uncomfortable, especially after Mark whispered something to her. One night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She walked quietly to Lily's room to make sure her daughter was okay. She opened the door slightly. Lily was fast asleep. On her desk was the new tablet Mark had bought her. But as Sarah moved closer to tuck Lily in, she saw something strange. Lily's small hand was clutching something under her pillow. It wasn't her favorite teddy bear. Sarah looked very carefully. Her heart skipped a beat. It was Lily's old tablet, the cheap tablet with the screen cracked in several places. The one Sarah always told her not to play with for fear the glass shards might hurt her. Sarah frowned. Why did Lily still have this broken tablet? Why was she hiding it under her pillow when the newer tablet was on the desk? Sarah didn't understand it. She thought it was just a child's emotional attachment to an old toy. She didn't know that broken tablet held a secret that was going to change everything. She returned to her room, her mind even more confused. The climax happened a few days later. Sarah was waiting for Lily to get back from school. She had promised Lily she would make her favorite chocolate cake, but an hour passed after dismissal time and Lily didn't arrive. Sarah called the school. They told her Lily had been picked up by Mark. Sarah's heart sank. Mark hadn't told her anything. She called Mark several times, but he didn't answer. 2 hours passed. 3 hours passed. Sarah was almost frantic with worry, pacing back and forth in the living room with tears in her eyes. It wasn't until 9:00 p.m. that she heard Mark's car. Lily walked in laughing and carrying a large bag full of things from an amusement park. Behind her, Mark walked calmly with a smug smile. "Where have you been? Why did you take Lily without telling me? I was dying of worry," Sarah cried out, her voice a mix of tears and rage. "Daddy took me to Fantasy World, Mommy. It was so much fun," Lily exclaimed happily. Mark looked at Sarah coldly. "So what? I'm her father. I have the right to take my own daughter out. Besides, you're not doing anything at home anyway. But you should have told me." "Why?" "So you could ruin our fun with your drama." It was then that Sarah smelled it. It was a woman's perfume, a soft but unfamiliar scent that clung to Mark's shirt. It wasn't Sarah's perfume, nor was it the fragrance Mark usually wore. "Mark, you." Mark followed the direction of Sarah's gaze. He knew she had smelled it. He didn't flinch, but smiled. He waited until Lily ran to her room to put away her new toys. Alone, Mark approached Sarah. His face was very close, and his voice hissed quietly, full of poison. "You noticed? Did you really think I was going to live forever with a woman as boring as you? You're nothing compared to her." Sarah stepped back, gasping. There was another woman. All of this, all the accusations were just an attempt to get rid of her to be with someone else. "Who is she?" Sarah whispered. "None of your business. She's a successful, intelligent woman who knows how to please a man unlike you." That night, Lily came to Sarah's room. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Sarah immediately wiped her tears. "I'm fine, princess. I just have a little headache." Lily looked at her mother with a hard-to-reach expression. "Are you really sick, Mommy?" "Daddy says, because you're sick, you're often sad and angry. Daddy said if Lily goes to live with him, Mommy can rest and get better." Sarah's heart shattered. Mark had been injecting poison into their little daughter's mind. He had manipulated Lily into believing it was an act of kindness to leave her side because her mother was sick. Sarah hugged Lily tightly. "Lily, listen to me. I'm not sick. I just love you so much. I promise I won't be angry anymore." But the damage was already done. Sarah saw hesitation in her daughter's eyes. Mark, who was listening to the conversation from the doorway, just sneered in the dark. He walked past Sarah, who was still in a daze, and gave a little pat on his wife's shoulder, finding sympathy. "Enjoy your time," Mark mocked quietly in Sarah's ear. "Soon, she won't even want to call you Mommy." The mediation hearing was a cruel joke. They sat in a small, stuffy room. The court-appointed mediator tried to find a middle ground. Mr. Davis began in a calm voice. "Mark, Sarah isn't asking for much. She just wants custody of Lily, or at least shared custody. As for the property, we can discuss it. Before Mr. Davis could finish, Mr. Davis could finish. Mr. Davis could finish. Mr. Wallace, well-dressed and expensive, quickly interrupted. "There's nothing to discuss," Mr. Wallace said sharply. He slammed the file folder in his hands onto the table. "Our client's position is clear. Sarah is the failed party in this marriage. It has been proven that she has failed in maintaining the home and in raising the child. Our client demands full custody for Lily's future." Mark sat beside him with a straight face as if he were the victim. "I just want what's best for my daughter," he said in a tone of false sadness. Sarah trembled. "Taking her mother away is what's best for her." Mr. Wallace chuckled. "Sarah, if you keep insisting, we will take this to trial, and I assure you all the evidence we have will humiliate you. The photos, the credit card statements, the expert testimony. You'd be better off signing this agreement. Our client is being benevolent by allowing you to leave the house without any counterclaims." "Leave my house with nothing and without Lily? Are you insane?" Sarah shouted. The mediator tried to intervene, but Mark and his lawyer were inflexible. The mediation completely broke down. Mr. Davis patted Sarah's shoulder as they left. "Stay strong, Sarah. The real fight begins now." The first day of the trial approached. Sarah's stomach had been in knots since morning. Mr. Davis reminded her to remain calm at all costs. The courthouse was cold and intimidating. The high wooden walls, the heavy chairs, and the judge's gavel, which seemed very authoritative. Mark was sitting on the opposite side, looking very confident with Mr. Wallace, who wore an expensive and elegant suit. The trial began. Mr. Wallace went first. He spoke fluently, his voice strong and confident. He presented his version of the facts, showed the pictures of the messy house, accusing Sarah of being a lazy and dirty housewife. He showed the credit card statements, accusing Sarah of being wasteful and financially irresponsible. "Your Honor, Mr. Wallace said dramatically, while my client Mark worked hard to earn money, his wife was at home wasting it and neglecting her daughter and her home." Sarah wanted to scream that it was all a lie, that Mark had set her up, that he had used the card, that he had taken the pictures on purpose when she was sick, but all she could do was grip her hands under the table. Mr. Davis stopped her with a reassuring look. When it was Mr. Davis's turn, he tried to refute. He explained that the photos were taken out of context. He explained that the credit card statements had been used by Mark himself, but his argument sounded weak. It was Sarah's word against the physical evidence presented by Mr. Wallace. The judge took notes, but his expression was unreadable. And then came the moment Sarah feared most. "The plaintiff calls its expert witness," said Mr. Wallace. "Dr. Evelyn Reed, child psychologist." The courtroom door opened. A woman entered. Sarah held her breath. The woman was beautiful, very elegant. Her hair was neatly tied back. She wore a professional blazer, and she walked with a confident stride. She didn't look like an evil woman at all. She looked convincing. As the woman took her oath, Sarah smelled the same perfume, the same fragrance that had clung to Mark's shirt that night. Sarah's heart stopped. It was her, Mark's mistress, and she had passed herself off as a child psychologist. Evelyn Reed sat on the witness stand. She spoke calmly. Her diction was clear, and she used psychological terms that sounded very professional and impressive. "Yes, Your Honor," Evelyn began to testify, answering Mr. Wallace's question. "I conducted observations of the natural behavior of Sarah and her daughter, Lily, over the past 3 months." "And what were your findings, Doctor?" Mr. Wallace asked. Evelyn opened her notes. "My findings were very concerning. I found a pattern of behavior in Sarah that tends to be inconsistent and emotionally volatile. There are signs of significant emotional distress." Evelyn began to detail the lies one by one, turning facts into deadly weapons. First observation. At a shopping mall, Sarah forcefully pulled Lily, speaking loudly to her, which made Lily cry in fear in front of people. This shows a low capacity for emotional regulation. Sarah closed her eyes. She remembered that day. Lily had almost run towards a wrong escalator, and Sarah had screamed and pulled Lily back in shock. "Lily, be careful." She wasn't angry. She was terrified that Lily would get hurt, but Evelyn had turned it into verbal abuse. Second observation. At a park, Evelyn continued. Sarah seemed more engrossed in her phone, ignoring Lily, who was playing alone. When Lily fell, Sarah didn't notice immediately. When she did, her reaction was exaggerated and tended towards hysteria, which further traumatized Lily from the fall. Another lie. Sarah remembered she was texting about the grocery list Mark had asked for. Lily tripped, and Sarah was indeed scared. She ran over immediately, hugged and comforted Lily. Her reaction was that of a concerned mother, not a hysterical one. "My conclusion," said Evelyn, looking intently at the judge with a firm voice, is that Sarah does not have the stable emotional capacity to raise a 7-year-old child. There are strong signs of parentification syndrome, where Sarah unconsciously projects her own unhappiness and emotional problems onto the child. For Lily's mental health, I strongly recommend full custody for the father, Mr. Mark, who is the more stable figure. The room fell silent. Evelyn's testimony was very powerful, very scientific, very destructive. Sarah cried silently. "It's a lie," she whispered to Mr. Davis. "It's all a lie. She's Mark's mistress. It's her." "Calm down, Sarah," Mr. Davis replied tensely. "Don't react. That's what they want." Mr. Davis stood up for cross-examination. He tried. "Dr. Reed, are you sure you can make such a serious diagnosis based solely on observations from a distance?" Evelyn smiled slightly. "On the contrary, counsel natural observations without the subject being aware are the most accurate. There's no manipulation. It's pure real behavior. You were paid by Mr. Mark for this testimony, weren't you?" "I was paid for my professional services, counsel, not for my conclusions. My conclusions are objective and based on the data from the field," Evelyn replied shrewdly. Mr. Davis was at a dead end. Evelyn had dodged too well. She had covered all the holes. The trial for that day was adjourned. Sarah left the courtroom with her legs trembling. She felt destroyed. She saw Mark smiling slightly, nodding at Evelyn with a look of satisfaction. In the lobby, Sarah leaned against the wall and sobbed. "We've lost, Mr. Davis. We've lost. They have everything." Mr. Davis was silent for a moment. Then he stared at Mark and Evelyn, who were walking together in the distance, discreetly separate, but not entirely far. "Not yet, Sarah," Mr. Davis said quietly, his eyes narrowed. "I know something is wrong. The way she looks at him when she thinks no one is watching is not the way a professional psychologist looks at a client." Mr. Davis turned to Sarah. "We have to find out who she really is." A few days before the next hearing, Mr. Davis called Sarah to his office. His face looked tired. The stack of papers on the desk seemed thicker than before. "Sarah, I've tried to trace the woman's background," Mr. Davis said directly. "The result is different from what we expected." Sarah's heart raced. "What do you mean?" "Her credentials are clean. Too clean." Mr. Davis sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "She's registered with the Psychologists Association. She has a registered practice clinic. All the documentation is perfect. Either she's a real psychologist who Mark hired to lie for money, or Mark forged this entire identity very cleanly. What is certain is that we can't attack her by accusing her of being a fake psychologist. The court would dismiss our claim immediately." The brief hope Sarah had vanished instantly. "So, we can't prove she's lying?" "No, we just can't prove she's not a psychologist. The only way is to rebut her testimony. And that means you have to testify, Sarah." Mr. Davis looked at Sarah seriously. "You have to tell your whole side of the story about the photos, about the credit cards, about Mark's behavior. And most importantly, you must not get emotional. Mr. Wallace will definitely try to provoke you. He will want you to look hysterical in front of the judge, exactly as Dr. Reed described you." Sarah nodded silently. "I'll do it. I'll try." The day came. It was Sarah's turn to sit on the witness stand. After taking the oath, Mr. Davis began with gentle questions, guiding Sarah to tell her life as a homemaker. Sarah explained in a voice she tried to keep as calm as possible. She talked about how she left her job to focus on caring for Lily, explained her routine from dawn until late at night. "About the photos of the messy house, Sarah, can you explain the context?" asked Mr. Davis. "Yes, those photos were taken by Mark about 2 months ago. I was seriously ill with a high fever for 3 days. At that time, I could barely get out of bed. I asked Mark to take care of the household, but he said he was too busy with work, so the house got very messy. I didn't have the energy to clean," Sarah explained. "And about the credit card statements. It was a secondary card in my name, but Mark had it more often. He said his main card often reached its limit with business matters. I believed him. I never bought those luxury bags or that jewelry. I didn't know about those charges until I saw them in the lawsuit documents." Sarah said everything honestly. She saw some in the gallery start to whisper. Some looked at her with sympathy, but the judge remained silent. His face was unreadable. Then it was Mr. Wallace's turn. The cunning lawyer stood up, straightened his tie, and walked towards the witness stand with a contemptuous smile. "Sarah," he began in a cloying tone. "So, you're saying that your husband, Mr. Mark, who works hard and brings money home, deliberately set you up. Is that it?" Sarah stammered. I didn't say that. I just said, what happened, but that's what it sounds like. The husband takes pictures of the dirty house. The husband uses the credit card. It's all the husband's fault. It seems you're not to blame for anything. Are you perfect?" Of course not. I'm not perfect, but I'm not a failure. Not a failure, Mr. Wallace sneered dismissively. Sarah, you said you were sick when those photos were taken. Do you have any medical report to prove you were seriously ill for 3 days? Sarah fell silent. I didn't go to the hospital. I just took medicine from the pharmacy. I thought I would recover. So, no proof, Mr. Wallace attacked quickly. It's just your word against real photographic evidence. Interesting. Mr. Wallace moved on to another topic about the credit cards. You say your husband used them, but the card is in your name. Did you ever report to the bank that the card was being misused? No. Did you ever reprimand your husband? No. You didn't say anything. Doesn't this show that you are negligent and financially irresponsible? Or does it mean you approved all the purchases? I trusted him. He was my husband. Sarah's voice rose. Blind trust, Mr. Wallace snapped. A trust that ruined the family finances. And now you blame your husband. I'm not blaming enough, Mr. Wallace held up his hand, returned to his table, and took a large printed photo. He held it up so the judge and everyone could see. Your Honor, I request permission to present Exhibit P12. Sarah's eyes widened in horror. It was a picture of her in their bedroom a few weeks before the divorce papers arrived with disheveled hair, crying and screaming. Mrs. Sarah, can you explain this photo? Mr. Wallace asked with a triumphant tone. Sarah trembled violently. Tears began to well up again. Isn't this real proof of what Dr. Reed said? Volatile emotions, hysteria? Is this the face of a competent mother? You don't understand, Sarah moaned, her tears now streaming down. That night, Mark had just come home. He called me a useless wife. He said I was a burden. He insulted me. He said I didn't deserve to be Lily's mother. He provoked me. So, you admit it, Mr. Wallace attacked without giving her a break. You admit you screamed hysterically. You admit you lost control. You are emotionally volatile. Exactly as Dr. Reed described. Right. No, Sarah shouted. She stood up from her chair. He set me up. He took my picture secretly after hurting me. He's a devil. He order. The judge's gavel struck hard. Witness. Calm yourself. Sit down. Sarah sobbed. Her shoulders shook. She fell back into her chair. Destroyed. Everything was destroyed. She had behaved exactly as Mark and Mr. Wallace wanted. She looked hysterical. She looked unstable. She looked like the image of the failed mother they had fabricated. She looked towards Mark's side. The man had his head down, making a false face of sadness, as if he were hurt by his wife's instability. Mr. Wallace was smiling smugly. The judge shook his head slowly. His expression was clear. He had already taken a side. The trial that day ended in total destruction for Sarah's side. Mr. Davis tried to comfort her as they left, but Sarah already felt numb. It's over, Mr. Davis, she whispered weakly. That night was the longest of her life. The sentencing hearing was to be the next day. Sarah knew she was going to lose. She was going to lose Lily. She went into Lily's room. Her daughter was already asleep. Mark wasn't home, probably celebrating his victory with Evelyn in advance. Sarah sat at the foot of the bed, stroking her daughter's hair. Her tears fell silently on Lily's cheek, and the girl stirred a little. Mommy. Lily opened her eyes, half asleep. Go back to sleep, princess, Sarah whispered, her voice from crying. She hugged her daughter tightly. Maybe the last hug is a full mother. I want you to know whatever happens tomorrow, Mommy loves you very much. Always feeling her mother's sadness, Lily hugged her back tightly. I love you too, Mommy. Sarah slowly broke the embrace. It was then that she saw it again. The edge of the old cracked tablet was sticking out from under Lily's pillow. Lily was clutching it tightly, even in her sleep. Sarah couldn't understand why Lily was so obsessed with that broken object. But that night, she was too destroyed to think about it any deeper. She just kissed her daughter on the forehead and went out to face the end of her world. The courtroom was colder than usual. The morning air was heavy and suffocating. Sarah sat rigidly in her chair, her eyes swollen and empty. She hadn't slept all night. Beside her, Mr. Francis and Davis stared straight ahead, with a grim expression. He knew he had done his best, but like Sarah, they were up against a giant wall. The atmosphere on the opposite side of the room was very different. Mark looked fresh and confident in a new suit. He smiled from time to time and exchanged quiet jokes with Mr. Wallace. Victory was in his sights. In the gallery, Sarah saw Evelyn. The woman sat elegantly, dressed in a cream-colored dress, looking at Sarah with a barely visible smile. The smile of the victor. The judge entered. The room fell silent instantly. Sarah's heart was beating so hard it hurt. In the matter of the divorce petition case number, the judge began formally. Today's agenda is the reading of the sentence. But before that, I request both parties to present their final arguments. Mr. Wallace stood up first. He summarized his victory skillfully. Your Honor, he said loudly, during this trial, we have seen irrefutable evidence. Photographic proof showing Mrs. Sarah's neglect of household duties. Financial proof showing her irresponsibility, and most importantly the testimony of the eminent child psychologist Dr. Evelyn Reed, who presented objectively and scientifically the defendant's emotional instability. Mr. Wallace pointed at Sarah. We even witnessed Mrs. Sarah's hysterical conduct in this very room during the last hearing, which supports Dr. Reed's diagnosis and is clearly on the record. He turned to Mark. On the other hand, we have Mark, a capable father, financially successful, and above all, emotionally stable and genuinely concerned about his daughter's future. Your Honor, the choice here is very clear. This is not about punishing the wife, but about saving the child. For the best interest of Lily, I urge you to grant full custody to our client, Mr. Mark, and to approve his request for the division of assets. Mr. Wallace sat down with a smug smile. Now, it was Mr. Davis's turn. He stood up slowly, looked around the room, not at the judge. Your Honor, Mr. Davis began in a soft but firm voice. What we have witnessed here is not evidence. It's character assassination. A very well-planned defamation. Photos can lie. You can take a picture of the world's best chef's kitchen at the wrong moment and make it look dirty. Statements can be manipulated, especially when one party has total financial control and the other's trust. And expert testimony. Testimony from an expert who only observed from a distance and drew radical conclusions from a few fragments of out-of-context incidents. Is that stronger than the deep motherly love a mother has built up for 7 years? Mr. Davis looked directly at Mark. Your Honor, we are not saving a child. We are witnessing a greedy husband trying to get rid of his wife, steal her assets, and cruelly take away the one thing that is most precious to her, her daughter. Sarah is a good mother. His voice trembled slightly with emotion. She's not perfect. No mother is, but she has dedicated her life to Lily. Do not let this well-woven defamation destroy that bond. I urge you to judge with conscience. Mr. Davis sat down. The room was silent. His argument had been excellent, emotional, but Sarah knew it wasn't enough. Mr. Davis's argument was based on belief. Mr. Wallace's argument was based on physical evidence and expert testimony. In the eyes of the law, the winner was already obvious. The judge cleared his throat, put on his glasses, and opened the thick file in front of him. This was the moment. Having reviewed all documents from both parties, heard all testimonies and considered all evidence presented, the judge began in a flat tone. His heart sank. The court notes that the plaintiff, Mr. Mark, has succeeded in presenting significant evidence. The judge continued. Sarah lowered her head and closed her eyes. First, the visual evidence, that is, the photographs demonstrated the negligence of the defendant, Mrs. Sarah, in managing the household. Second, the financial evidence demonstrated a considerable spending imbalance on the credit card in the defendant's name. Every sentence was a knife cut. And most damaging, said the judge, his voice sounding final, is the testimony of the expert witness, Dr. Evelyn Reed, regarding the emotional state of Mrs. Sarah. This testimony was unfortunately reinforced by the defendant's own conduct at the last hearing, which provided the court with a very worrying picture of the psychological environment for the child's growth. Sarah began to cry silently. It was over. Mark looked at Sarah and a faint, cruel smile of victory appeared at the corner of his mouth. Evelyn behind him sat up straighter in her seat, ready to applaud. With all the considerations mentioned above and especially for the best interest and mental health of the minor child, Lily, the judge raised his gavel and Sarah closed her eyes, ready to hear the sentence that would destroy her life. The court finds, stop. The voice was small, but it cut through the silence of the courthouse. It was high-pitched and clear. Everyone turned their heads in unison towards the source of the voice. In the slightly open door at the back of the room stood Lily. She was alone, still in her school uniform. She had obviously snuck in. Mark's face went from arrogance to shock to pale. Lily, what are you doing here? Get out, he shouted in a panic. Bailiff, Lily, sit down, princess. Mark tried again, his voice strained, but Lily didn't move. She walked into the courthouse. The sound of her small steps echoed on the marble floor. She didn't look at her mother, who was stunned with her mouth open. She didn't look at her father, who was furious. She looked directly at the judge. The room, which had been silent, waiting for the sentence, was now frozen. The gavel, which was about to fall, stopped in midair. The judge's eyes widened, looking at the little girl at the door. Sarah turned around, feeling her heart drop out of her chest. Lily, she whispered in disbelief. What was her daughter doing here? Who had brought her? Mark's reaction was the fastest. His face, which a moment before was full of arrogance and triumph, was now pale and bloodless. There was pure terror in his eyes. "Lily," he shouted, his voice rising without its calm disguise. "What are you doing here? Get out. This is not a playground." "Bailiff, how can a child get in?" Lily flinched at her father's shout, but she didn't retreat. Instead, she walked deeper into the room. "Lily," Dad said. "Turn around and sit down," Mark yelled again, now half standing. His lawyer, Mr. Wallace, was also baffled. He stood up and shouted at the judge, "Your Honor, this is a procedural violation. This hearing is confidential. A minor should not be here and should not interrupt the proceedings. Order your staff to remove the child." Sarah was still frozen, confused. One part of her mind was shattering over the fact that Lily was in this horrible place. The other part was trembling with fear. What was Lily going to say? Had Mark succeeded in completely poisoning her? Would Lily tell the judge she preferred her father? The thought made Sarah nauseous. "Your Honor, for consideration." Mr. Davis's voice suddenly rang out, stopping Mr. Wallace. "This child has come with an obvious purpose. This is about her future. We cannot ignore her." The judge raised his hand. His face was grave. "Silence, everyone." His voice boomed. He stared at Mark and Mr. Wallace, silencing their protests. Then his gaze turned to Lily. His expression softened. Lily approached slowly, her small steps echoing loudly on the silent marble. She stopped in the center between the two lawyers' tables. She looked directly at the judge sitting on his high bench. "Your Honor," Lily said in a trembling but clear voice for the whole room to hear. "I'm sorry to interrupt." "It's okay, Princess," the judge said in a more fatherly tone. "Why are you here? Who brought you?" "I came by myself. My aunt brought me, but I snuck in. I heard my daddy say that my mommy is bad." Mark's eyes widened. "Lily, watch your words." "Silence, Mr. Mark," the judge shouted. "Let the child speak." Sarah covered her mouth. Tears began to well up. Lily swallowed as if gathering courage. She looked at the judge again. Her pure, clear eyes showed sincerity. "Daddy said, my mommy is bad. Daddy said my mommy gets angry a lot. Daddy said my mommy can't take care of me," she continued, her voice trembling slightly. Sarah closed her eyes. This was the end. Lily was going to repeat all of Mark's lies. But then a sentence made Sarah open her eyes. "But can I show you something?" Lily looked at the judge with pleading eyes. "Something my mommy doesn't know." That sentence hung in the air. Something my mommy doesn't know. Sarah frowned. What did she mean? Mr. Wallace jumped up again. "Your Honor, this is absurd. A recording from a child cannot be used as evidence. This is an invasion of privacy recorded without permission. That recording proves your expert witness lied, Mr. Wallace." Mr. Davis retorted sharply. "This is very intriguing. Enough arguing." The judge slammed his gavel. His eyes, which were previously fatherly, now shone brightly. He sensed there was a big lie. "Clerk, assist this child. Connect that device to the court monitors right now." "No," Mark shouted desperately. He grabbed the edge of the table, his knuckles white. "I object, Your Honor. This is a setup." "Your objection is noted, Mr. Mark. Now sit down," the judge ordered. A clerk quickly approached Lily and carefully took the cracked tablet. He found a cable, and moments later, the large monitor screens on the courtroom wall went black, then showed the home screen of Lily's tablet. Mark covered his face. Evelyn behind him seemed to be trembling violently. Lily, now standing next to the clerk, looked at the screen. She didn't look at Sarah or Mark. She was focused on her mission. "This one, sir." She pointed to a video file in the gallery. The clerk clicked on it. A video thumbnail appeared. "Go ahead, Princess," the judge said. "Play the video." Lily stretched out her small index finger. She pressed the play button on the screen. The video began. The large monitor screen flickered to life. The shot was slightly shaky and tilted. The angle was low, as if it were recorded from behind something. A quiet laugh could be heard. "It's our living room," Sarah whispered, recognizing the sofa and the large potted plant in the corner of the room. The video seemed to have been taken from behind that plant where Lily often hid while playing hide and seek. And then two figures entered the recorded frame. Mark and Evelyn. Not Evelyn in the professional blazer like in the courthouse, but Evelyn in stylish, comfortable loungewear. Her hair was down. Mark entered laughing, and immediately hugged Evelyn from behind, kissing her on the neck. "Oh my God." A muffled exclamation was heard throughout the room in unison. Sarah froze, her breath caught in her throat. So the perfume, her suspicions, it was all true. The woman who gave false testimony to ruin her was the same one who slept with her husband in her home. On the other side, Mr. Wallace stared at the monitor with his mouth agape. He turned to Mark with a look of horror as if to say, you never told me this. In the gallery, Evelyn lowered her head, trying to hide her face. And then the voices of the figures in the video were heard clearly in the silence of the courthouse. Evelyn's voice. Are you sure your plan will work? Your wife is so stupid. Mark's voice laughed with certainty. Stupid and submissive. She won't suspect a thing. All the money has already been transferred to your account, darling. Sarah felt her legs give way. Her money, their joint account, had been transferred to Evelyn's account. Oh, God, Mr. Davis muttered beside her, his eyes fixed on the screen. The video continued. Mark sat on the sofa and pulled Evelyn onto his lap. Mark's voice. Once the verdict comes out tomorrow, I'll officially get custody of Lily. We'll sell this hellhole of a house immediately and move to Switzerland, far away from her. Evelyn's voice sounded flirtatious. And Lily, she seems very attached to her mother. This was the part that hurt Sarah the most. She held her breath, waiting for Mark's answer. Mark's voice was dismissive. Oh, the kid is easy to handle. Just give her a new tablet and she'll forget her mother. You'll be her new mother, a smarter, more successful, and much sexier mother. Mark kissed Evelyn passionately in the video. Enough, turn it off, Mark shouted in a rage. He jumped from his chair, trying to run to the clerk's table to stop the video. Officers, restrain him. The judge bellowed in anger. The two security guards who had been guarding the door moved immediately. They subdued Mark before he could get far, twisting his arms behind his back. Mark thrashed like an animal in a trap. Let me go, it's not true. It's doctored, Mark shouted desperately. Silence him, the judge ordered. Continue the video. I want to see it to the end. The video continued playing, oblivious to the chaos in the room. Now it was Evelyn's turn to speak. Evelyn's voice. I'm still a little worried. What about my testimony as a psychologist? What if Sarah's lawyer refutes it with his observations? Mark's voice laughed again. I already prepared for that. I recorded her last week when she cried hysterically. Remember, I'll provoke her again at the trial. I'll insult her until she explodes. She'll scream and cry in front of the judge. Sarah sobbed, remembering her testimony, the photo, her screams. He set me up. Mark's voice. Once she gets hysterical, your testimony will look perfect. The judge will see for himself that she's an unstable lunatic. No one will believe her. They'll believe Doc Evelyn Reed, the professional. The video finally showed Mark and Evelyn toasting with wine glasses, laughing. The video ended. The screen went black. The room was silent for a few seconds. The only sounds were Sarah's sobs and Mark's gasping breath under the guard's control. Everyone in the room, the judge, the clerks, the gallery, and even Mr. Wallace stared at the black screen in horror. They had just witnessed a very well-planned evil conspiracy, fraud, perjury, money laundering, and manipulation of the court. In the gallery, some people started turning their heads looking for Evelyn. There she is. That's the woman, someone shouted. Evelyn realized she was completely exposed. In a panic, she jumped from her seat and ran towards the back exit. Lily, the little hero who had been watching the video she had just played, turned her head. She didn't look at Mark, who was subdued. She looked at her mother. Her pure eyes met Sarah's, which were filled with tears. The judge, his face red with rage, raised his gavel high. He didn't let it fall silently. He slammed it hard on the table. Silence everyone. The court is now in session. Officers, lock all exits. No one leaves. Arrest that woman, Dr. Evelyn Reed, immediately. The courtroom erupted into controlled chaos. The furious judge's gavel strike was both an order and a release of the frozen tension. The two security guards who had just subdued Mark now dragged him to a chair. Mark was no longer shouting. He was just gasping. His eyes were frantic and his expensive suit was soaked in sweat. He knew it was over. At the back door, another commotion arose. Evelyn, in her panic, couldn't open the large door the judge had just ordered locked. She pulled the handle and pushed in vain. A female officer quickly intercepted her. Evelyn collapsed to the floor. Her professional mask was completely gone. She was no longer the calm, convincing psychologist. She was just a scared woman crying hysterically. Exactly the image she had used in the photos to trap Sarah. Karma had come too quickly and cruelly. Bring her here, the judge ordered in a cold, unforgiving voice. The officers dragged the sobbing Evelyn to the front and sat her on the witness stand, which now felt like the defendant's box. Across the room, Mark's lawyer, Mr. Wallace, looked like a melting wax figure. His face was pale and his tie was crooked. He no longer looked at the judge. He stared at the stack of papers in front of him without a response. His career and reputation had been destroyed in an instant by the video from a child's broken tablet. He knew he was implicated. He might not have known about the affair, but he knew about the manipulated photo evidence and the testimony prepared to trap Sarah. Sarah herself was still sitting. She watched the scene before her as if it were a movie. Her sobs had now subsided, replaced by a frozen shock. Beside her, Mr. Davis gave her a gentle pat on the back, but his eyes were fixed on the judge, ready for the final blow. Lily stood quietly next to the clerk. She was the calm center of the storm. She only looked at her mother as if making sure she was okay. The judge took a deep breath and straightened his robes. He looked at Mark, at Evelyn, and then at Mr. Wallace. Mr. Wallace. Mark, the judge began in a calm but terrifying voice. That video is the property of your daughter and was recorded in your own home. Do you still want to insist that it is doctored? Mark raised his head, his face blank. She set me up, he muttered. It was a last pathetic attempt. That woman, Evelyn, planned everything. She seduced me. Hearing this, Evelyn immediately screamed. Liar. You told me to do it. You told me you would marry me. You told me you would transfer all the money to my account. I did all of this for you. Silence. The judge slammed his gavel again. You are both the same. Your confessions have already been recorded in the court record. The judge turned to Evelyn. Miss Reed, you sat on this stand under oath and gave false testimony. You used your professional credentials to destroy a mother's life and aid in a crime. You not only violated your code of ethics, but you committed perjury before this court. The judge looked at Mr. Wallace. And Mr. Wallace, did you know or should you have suspected that the evidence you presented, including this testimony, was false? You tried to provoke the witness at the last hearing to fit your client's false narrative. You have disgraced this profession. I will have the ethics committee revoke your law license. Mr. Wallace hung his head, unable to say anything. Finally, the judge looked at Mark. His gaze was so piercing it seemed to FLE the man alive. Mr. Mark, you came into this courtroom demanding justice. You accused your wife of failure. You accused her of instability. You demanded her assets. And most egregiously, you demanded to separate a child from her mother. The judge lifted Mark's lawsuit file and held it high. Let's review your petition. First, the accusation that the wife failed and neglected the home proven false. The video just proved that you conspired to defame her. The judge threw a sheet from the file onto the floor. Second, the accusation that the wife was financially irresponsible and wasteful proven false. The video is a confession that you stole money from your joint account and transferred it to your lover's account. This is not just defamation. It's theft. He threw the second sheet. Third, the accusation that the wife was emotionally unstable, supported by false expert testimony proven to be a blatant scheme. The video proves you conspired to provoke your wife, record her secretly, and use it to mislead this court. He threw the third sheet. Your entire lawsuit, the judge's voice rose, is a pile of garbage based on lies, greed, and adultery. The court dismisses the divorce petition filed by Mr. Mark in its entirety. The gavel slammed hard, but the judge wasn't finished. He looked at Mr. Davis and Sarah. The court will not stop here. Based on this new irrefutable evidence, the court rules to protect the victim. 1. The judge held up a finger. Full custody of the minor child, Lily, is unconditionally granted to her biological mother, Sarah. Sarah gasped. The tears now flowing were of relief. She looked at Lily. 2. The judge continued. Mr. Mark's divorce petition has been dismissed. However, the court suggests that Mrs. Sarah file a counter petition right now. Mrs. Sarah, do you wish to divorce your husband? Mr. Davis whispered, and Sarah, in a trembling but firm voice, looked directly at Mark, who was now defeated with his head down. Yes, Your Honor. I demand a divorce right now. Good, the judge exclaimed. The court grants the divorce to Sarah on the grounds of adultery and fraud by the husband. Full custody to Sarah. 3. The judge stood up now. All assets in the name of M. Mark and Miss Reed will be frozen immediately. The court orders a full investigation to trace all funds stolen from Mrs. Sarah. The currently occupied house is declared the sole property of Sarah and Lily. And 4. The judge's voice now boomed throughout the room based on the video evidence and the confessions in this room. I order the immediate arrest of Mr. Mark and Miss Reed for multiple criminal offenses, including conspiracy to commit fraud, perjury, domestic theft, and tampering with evidence in a court of law. Take them away. The security guards immediately handcuffed Mark. The man who had walked in that morning with arrogance was now led out with his head bowed. He passed by Sarah. He didn't dare to look his wife in the eye. Evelyn was also handcuffed. Her cries had dried up, leaving only a swollen, dirty face. She was dragged away. Her career and her freedom were gone. Sarah was still sitting, trembling. Mr. Davis smiled from ear to ear. We won, Sarah. We won. Sarah couldn't speak. She just stood up and walked slowly to the center of the room. Lily ran to her. Sarah knelt and hugged her daughter tightly as if she were hugging her savior. She cried on her small shoulders. Not tears of sadness, but tears of a mother saved by her little hero. The aftermath of Judgment Day spread like wildfire. The story of the broken tablet made news everywhere. The story of the greedy husband, the fake psychologist, and the 7-year-old hero dominated local news for weeks. The first few weeks were a blur for Sarah and Lily. Mr. Davis handled everything. By the judge's order, all of Mark's and Evelyn's assets were frozen. The investigation showed that Mark had transferred nearly $1 million to Evelyn's account over the last year. All the money was seized and returned to Sarah's new account. The large cold house was now officially Sarah's, but Sarah could no longer stay there. Too many bad memories, too many shadows of Mark and Evelyn in every corner. With Mr. Davis's consent, Sarah sold the house. The proceeds from the sale were more than enough to start a new life. The punishment for the villains was swift and severe. Given the overwhelming evidence, Mark was sentenced to 12 years in prison for fraud, theft, and perjury. Evelyn, whose psychologist credentials turned out to be real but used criminally, was sentenced to 8 years and her practice license was permanently revoked. The cunning Mr. Wallace was immediately disbarred by the ethics committee and faced criminal charges for his involvement in the conspiracy. Karma had been paid in full. 3 months after that Judgment Day, children's laughter was heard in a small green park. Sarah, with the weight of worry gone from her face, smiled as she watched Lily on the swing. They had moved not to a big house, but to a modest and cozy 2-bedroom apartment. It was filled with pictures of the two of them and smelled of cookies Sarah had baked. Sarah had started a small catering business from home. Her cooking skills, which Mark always belittled, were now praised by many. Orders were coming in. She was busy and tired, but happy. She was independent. Mommy, look! Lily ran to Sarah, who was sitting on a park bench. Her hands were dirty with soil. The flowers are going to bloom soon. Sarah smiled, stroking Lily's short hair. Wow, my daughter is very good at planting things. They sat next to each other for a while, enjoying the afternoon sunday. There was one question Sarah hadn't had a chance to ask calmly. Princess, Sarah began gently. Can I ask you something? What? Mommy. Lily looked at her with clear eyes. The video on the old tablet. Why? Why did you record it? Lily was silent for a moment as if remembering. Because I didn't like Aunt Evelyn. Why didn't you like her? Aunt Evelyn pretended to be nice. She smiled at Mommy and talked to you at the mall. But when Mommy went to the bathroom, she told Daddy, your wife takes a long time, and at the park, too. She saw me, but she told Daddy that Mommy wasn't watching me. But Mommy was watching me. Sarah was amazed. Her little daughter was a keen observer. And that night, Lily continued, Daddy said he was working late, but I heard his car come back. I wanted to show Daddy my new drawing. But when I came downstairs, I saw Daddy come in with Aunt Evelyn. Daddy hugged her right away. I got scared, so I hid behind the flower pot. So you recorded it there? Yes, I used the old tablet to record. I remembered. Mommy said, if there are bad people, there must be proof, and I had the old tablet with me. Sarah's heart warmed. She had forgotten she had said that. But Princess, Sarah asked again. This was the most important question. Why didn't you tell Mommy? Why did you keep it a secret? Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. Daddy said Mommy shouldn't know. Sarah frowned. Daddy told you that? Yes. In the video, Daddy told Aunt Evelyn, my wife is stupid. She won't know. I thought it was a big secret because Daddy said Mommy shouldn't know, so I kept it. I didn't want Daddy to be mad if Mommy found out. It was the pure logic of a child. She had recorded her father's crime, but kept it secret because her own father had told her that her mother shouldn't know. Then why did you show it in the courthouse? Because the judge was going to take Lily away from Mommy. Daddy said Mommy was bad and Aunt Evelyn also said Mommy was bad, and that's not true. Lily had tears in her eyes. I don't want to be separated from Mommy. Mommy isn't bad. Mommy is the best Mommy. So I had to show the judge that Daddy and Aunt Evelyn are the bad ones. Sarah couldn't hold back anymore. She hugged Lily tightly. She cried tears of joy. For all this time, she had suffered Mark's accusations that she was a failed mother. She had doubted herself, felt destroyed. But before her was the strongest proof that she had not failed. She had raised an incredible daughter, a child pure and sharp enough to distinguish truth from falsehood, a brave child with the courage to act alone to protect her mother, a child with a pure sense of justice. Thank you, Princess, Sarah whispered into her daughter's hair. Thank you for saving me. Lily hugged her back. I love you, Mommy. I love you so much, too, Lily. Sarah broke the hug and looked at her daughter's bright face. She finally understood. She had never failed. She had just been raising a hero. And now they were both free for a new beginning.